Hey pilots, welcome back to Motion RC, your product specialist Wesley, and I'm glad to see you're following along with our build assembly of the Nexa Tri-Pacer. This is video 2. If you haven't already seen video 1, you want to start there. We built the wings yesterday on this aircraft, and now we're out here today to start on the fuselage. So today what we're going to start with is the step of putting our elevator and rudder assembly on, or horizontal stabilizer and vertical stabilizer. Some guys like to call it one of the two things. What we need to do first is get us our favorite X-Acto knife. I have our Benchcraft one right here, and you want a brand new blade for this. Don't try and do this part without getting a brand new fresh blade. If you have a dull blade, when you start to try and cut your covering out, you will make a mess. So it is very important to start with a fresh blade when you do this. So the first thing we need to do is come back here to the aft section of the model, and you will see the top piece here, and it wraps around back into the back, is a cutout for the rudder to key down into, so we're going to have to cut that out. And then on the sides of the fuselage, there is a square here and a square on the other side that we need to cut out. Now, once again, I'm not using a flight stand today. I'm using the carpet here on the table. I definitely recommend you use a towel, an old blanket, something to cover up your table, especially if you're doing this on your kitchen table. If you drop glue or hit your kitchen table with a knife or something, you're not going to be very happy with yourself. So I always build on something like this, and it really helps save the model and the table from getting damaged. All right, guys, we're going to take our X-Acto knife though, and we're going to start cutting these out. So right here on the top section of the fuselage, we have that square we need to trace out. Now sometimes I like to cut them a little bit bigger than what they need to be and fold them around, but sometimes it's just a little too tight for that. So we're going to just try and get this as close as we can. We're just going to follow that right down. Gently, without a lot of force, with this brand new blade, it should cut right through there, just like that. We want to make it as nice as we can. Same thing up here, we're going to just take it across, and then we're going to cut down it. If we need to make a little trimming as we go, we can. We want to try and cut that as nice as we can right off the bat. There we go. And I'm going to take and cut that off like that. And clean it up. Now, before we ever get any kind of glue out, we want to test fit. See if it's going to go down in there. We can go on and slide our rudder out of the way because we don't need that. Where we're going. And yes, it is going to push right around. I left just a little tiny bit around that outside piece. Excuse me. I left just a little bitty pit around that outside piece, and that tucked it right around there. So when we actually get ready to glue that, that's going to be perfect. Everything's fitting very nice, very flush. So we can slide that back out now that we know we got it just how we needed it. Perfect. And as you can see, there's just an ever so slight amount of it tucked around the corner. I'm going to take my finger and push that down real good now. Just like that. Now we need to do the same thing for the two sides of the elevator. So once again, I'm going to find a corner, plunge it in, and just let the knife do the work for me here. Don't push hard. It should just kind of slide through it like butter if you have a brand new blade like I do. Now we need to test fit our elevator halves. We can go on and take the pieces off because they are not glued in yet. Remember, the two holes on the top are actually going to be facing upwards towards the top of the aircraft this way, so that the side with no holes faces the bottom. That's because the flying wires go in right here. Now, we need to test fit before we ever put any kind of glue on it. We need to figure out where the center is. So let's slide this in, make sure everything's happy and tight and not going to cause any issues as we slide it all together. So it is hitting a little bit on this side from the covering. Just take your time. Now, let me grab a ruler. All right, what we need to do now is measure both sides and make sure they're the same distance out. If you have a ruler, that's fine. I just have this little wire here. It's gonna work just fine. So I'm just gonna take that and put it on there. It's to right there. I hold it over to the other side now. It's the same length. I'm also going to make sure I take a look at it and just visually make sure that that is in the middle. I got a pretty good eye for that. All right. Now that we know that our elevator is in the middle, we're going to take a pencil and make a line on both sides. This way we know how to line it up going forward, and we're going to cut the covering off. So now that we have that all good, let's slide it back out. We can move the fuselage off out of our way now. And what we can see when we look at this now is we have our two lines where the edges of the fuselage are. So what we're going to do is come in, I'd say a couple eighths of an inch here, and just take and cut that out now to that inside of that mark. What we're doing is we're going to take the covering off, and we're pushing just hard enough to cut the covering, but we don't want to cut the balsa here. That's the trick. Don't push real hard here. The reason we're doing this is we want a good spot for our glue to touch wood to wood, if at all possible, not onto that covering. Same thing on the bottom. But the reason we leave it just a little bit longer is so that you don't see that wood when you go to glue it all on between the covering. If you try and cut it exactly to it, you're going to see the wood, and you don't want that. All right, there we go. Now we can slide our elevator half back on. If you're going to do epoxy, you put it on up until it's up against the edge here, and then you put your epoxy on. I'll show you. So we're going to take it, slide that in there just like before. Now, if you want to do epoxy, you'll have to smear it on right here as it gets close, push that in, and then clean the excess off. But on these smaller airplanes, what I find is better is just to CA them on. So we're going to slide that in. Right to where we had it last time, line up our lines. And let's test fit the rudder down in there now to make sure it actually keys in all the way. So before we glue anything, we need to make sure that we can actually put that rudder piece in too. Because if you don't line all this up perfect before you glue, you'll never get it down. So now that we know that's good, we can take and we can glue it. Now, I like to use a little bit of thin CA for this part. If it's a larger model, I usually use like a 5 to 30 minute epoxy for this. But because this is a smaller airplane, we can get away with this. The way we're gonna do it is, now that we know everything is just how we want it, I'm gonna turn it up on its side, take some thin CA, and I'm gonna run it right down that crack. That's gonna run all up in there. We're gonna let that set for about a minute. Then we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna hit this joint, and this joint. We're gonna go all the way around. We don't want it to run out right now, so we're gonna let it run down in there. Perfect. Now we can do the other side. Now we just need to let that all set up for just a minute there. All right, so now we're gonna glue our rudder on. Now, it actually goes in there quite a bit. I'm gonna take and just cut a little bit of the covering off of this also. Once again, the more covering we have off, the more places there are for wood to actually get hit. So I'm gonna take it right there. Now, same as before, what I am going to do is put that right in there, slide it down, all the way, very nice. Just like so, all looks good. Take our thin CA again, put it up on its side, and run it right down in there. Don't worry about doing a lot. It's going to run all down in there and go all where it needs to go. It's the joy of thin. It's all ran down into the crack now. That's going to glue that up very nicely. Now we can do the other side. Now we're going to let that set there, and that thin CA is going to run all down in there and really glue that elevator on and rudder. Perfection. Let's let that set up for just a few minutes. We'll go on to the next step. Well, guys, I made the mistake, so you don't have to. I said to do that and be careful. And wouldn't you know, I slid that in there and I glued my elevator in upside down. So the good news is it's just these two little holes. They actually go all the way through. So what I'm going to do, once again, grab me a little piece of that patch material and just cover them up. But don't make the same mistake I did. I even told you not to do it, and then I did it anyway. The good news is it comes with this little sheet of patch material. So now you can see, if you make the same mistakes that I have, it's this easy to fix it. Whoops. The good news is the elevator is actually exactly the same on both sides, so it doesn't actually matter, but it's annoying. So don't make that same mistake. All right, so for this next part, what we need to do is just make sure that our elevator still fits in the proper place. Everything lines up good, and it does. And what we're going to do now is install our control horns. Now, the book tells you to do it after you've glued these on. I'm going to tell you right now, this is so much easier if you can slide it off and set it on the table. So now we're going to work on this one. And the elevator horn goes in from the bottom. And I'm not going to mess it up this time. Haha. When you're looking at it, you can actually see it through the covering, just like we did on the wings. All we need to do now is cut that out on both sides. The covering itself, not the wood. Now, we need to test fit these through the, let's see, goes like that. Test fit them in there, just like so, and it does fit. Now, once again, let's double, triple check. We've got it down where it needs to go. I'm gonna set it on the table where I know exactly how to glue it in there. I'm gonna take some medium CA, pop that little guy back out, and we're gonna put it in. Here we go, some medium CA on both sides. We want some gap filler, and pop her in there, just like that. All the way down. We're gonna let that set there off to the side while we'll do the other piece. Now, let's do the same thing for the other side now. And once again, we're gonna make sure that goes in the correct direction. Should be perfectly opposite of that one. So now we've got it lined up. The glue on. And here we go. Plunger in, just like that. And we're gonna let these set. Now we do not wanna mess with these too much. We wanna give these a good 5-10 minutes for that CA to get hard before we manipulate these again, because we do not wanna break that glue joint while it's drying. So let's let that set for a little bit and we'll get back to you in just a minute. All right, so I've let these just kind of set up for a little bit. Now we need to take and put our little clip retainers on the back side. I've done one of them here already. As you can see, oops, I got it the wrong way. At that side, and then that's what they're gonna look like. Now they probably would stay in there just like they are without the little retainers, but we're gonna put them on there just to be safe. Just kind of snap them down on there. There you go, get them all the way snapped down. Nice and strong. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of my Zappa Gap and put that in there. This is medium CA. Just gonna let that run around in there to hold those on. Set those off to the side. Now we need to do our rudder. Now remember, the rudder can only go on one direction, that horn. When you look at the side of the fuselage, you can see you've got the two on one side. That's gonna be the side your rudder horn needs to go to. So we need to make sure it goes to this side. When you look at the rudder, once again, there's a little hole right there, already pre-cut. We just need to cut it out and install into that hole. There we go. Now let's grab our horn. Once again, double check before gluing right now that it's the right direction. Once we know it is, we'll take a little bit of our medium, soak it around on there, and push it in all the way down. There we go. Now we can set that off to the side as we do the next part while that one dries. Now it is time to put our elevator halves on. This is very crucial. Don't glue them on upside down. They will fit in the other way. If you put your horns the wrong way, it's going to be a world of trouble. We need to make sure we have our horns facing down, like so, and like so. And now it's time to actually glue on our elevator halves. So we're going to grab some thin CA. We want it to wick into all the surfaces. What I tell you to do is, it's hard to do this where y'all can see what I'm going to do, but I'm going to hold the surface down like that. We're going to drip that thin CA in there now. Hard to do this in this angle. But we'll make sure we get plenty in there. Now we're going to let that set. Make sure we have plenty of travel up and down. And we do. And we're going to make sure that that gap across here stays nice and even until that sets off. Now that's going to take a little bit. It's pretty humid here in Florida today, and the CA is taking quite a while to kick off. I'm going to go on and grab the other side real quick and run that in there. Making sure it's not running out the bottom. We want it good and wet though. Take your time on this part. Now we can set those down. Plenty of movement, perfect. We're gonna let that set now. We need it to dry before we manipulate the aircraft anymore. We're gonna set that off to the side. Grab our rudder now, give it a quick check, see if that CA has gone off, and it has. So we can put that other clip on right here. There we go, nice and flush. Take a little bit of that gap filling CA again. Run it down there on the top of that horn just to make sure it never comes loose. We're gonna let all of this dry for just a few minutes now. All right, pilot, so now this has had a little bit of time to set up. I've tugged on them and made sure it's all good. We're gonna let them continue to dry as we do the next part though. So now we gotta put our rudder on. Remember, rudder only goes one way. We've got that little horn going off to the right side. We're gonna set this on here now, and what you'll see is the bottom one isn't cut out, but now we can see right where it should be. We can probably run our little finger there, and there should be a slot pre-cut right there. So let's take our X-Acto knife, and we should be able to poke until we find it. Or another thing we can do, take that, set it in there, take our pencil, and it should be somewhere between there and there. Because this one's kind of hard to see, this little cutout. I'm sure it's there. So let's just take and slip a little bit of our covering. It's pretty thick right in here. Well, I suppose it is not there. I thought there would be one. I'm poking ever so slightly. It feels like it's very soft right here. I don't think the actual cut has been done. So, we're gonna cut one. So I know it needs to go right there to right there. We're gonna plunge it. Now, I'm gonna take it and just work my way down. Now normally, this part should be done for you. Maybe it just wasn't on mine, particular one. What I'm doing is taking my blade though, and just putting it in there, wiggling it. Now I have a tool that does this, but I know not all of you guys are gonna have that. And once I hit it, I think there was just a little piece of balsa over this. I cut through it though, and that has got it now where I think I can slide this in here. Yep. Let's see if it'll go all the way in now. Still a little tight there on the bottom. So let's take and work it a little more. There we go. Got it. So now it's the same as the elevator. Now that we've got that on there, we're going to lean it over, squirt our CA in there, and let it set up. So what I think I'm going to actually do, pull these top two out just a little bit. I'm going to squirt some Zap-A-Gap on it. And I'm going to shoot them in there, just like that. Perfect. Perfecto. Now we can hit the bottom one with some thin. I like using the thick when I can, or thin, medium I should say. All right, I'm gonna stand over here for a second and hold that gravity-wise. I want it to all run in there now. Now, give this a minute to all set up, then we're gonna tug on everything. But you should be able to hold it just off of the control surfaces and they not rip out. Just like that, you know. If it does, you didn't get a good glue joint. But you should be able to sit here and do this, no problem, on all your control surfaces after they glue up. So we're gonna just check everything, make sure it's all good. These ought to be good and set up by now. Tug on them, twist on them, pull on them. If you ever have anything loose, you want to find it now and not in the air. And this is a good thing to check between flights too. But all right, we got our elevator halves on. Uh-oh, one of our little rods came out for our rudder. So we can aim that just right. There we go. And now it is time to start putting our servos in the aircraft. The other thing you want to check, and this is when we were putting it on, but I kind of checked it then, is make sure it's straight. So if you look down the aircraft, like we are right now, you want it to be straight. And you can slide the wings on if you want, double check that with the wings too, because your wings need to be the same as your elevator halves. Now they should be, this is cut a certain way where it shouldn't be crooked, but I'm not gonna say I haven't seen it before where they don't come out crooked. But yeah, that's straight as it could be, straight as an arrow. Grab our rods. We're going to pass these from the aft section of the fuselage down into the aircraft. We're probably going to end up cutting all these off, but for now we're going to get them down in there, make sure they're in the middle. Oh, they're way too long. Yeah, we're definitely going to cut them off. I'm going to go on and cut these down a little bit just because they're ridiculously long. So I can't even fit the rod all the way in the aircraft right now. They are all the same length, correct? Yep, okay. So I'm gonna cut them down a little bit so we can get them all the way in the aircraft. I'm also going to go on and hook them up so they're not flopping around in there. There is that guy to right there. And these are loose, so you can move them back and forth right now until we get them right where we want them. We're gonna glue them at the end. So let's drill that guy out a little bit. We can take that and clip it in. Right now I'm just getting all the rods test fitted. There's that one. Might as well go on and do the elevators too. Being careful not to poke through the aircraft as we do it. Uh-oh. See our little black thing went up in there, so we just got to reach in here and push it back out. That one reached. Oh, it went out the front. We're gonna cut this one down a little bit too, because they don't need to be all the way out the front of the airplane. We're going to cut them down again here in a minute once we work through this all. I'm going to hook that one up so it doesn't fall down in there. This is a really good time for that carpet. Like I said, this keeps you from tearing up the aircraft while you're trying to do this stuff. I drilled them out a little bit. There is like no slop though. Now we are going to end up taking them all back out after we get our servos in to Z-bend them. Now once again, you can use the same ones that came for the ailerons and such. But we are going to Z-bend them. But that gets our tail just about assembled now. So let's double check everything now. We should have an elevator and a rudder and an elevator. It's all working correctly. Now, like I said, this is all just kind of test fit in there right now. These black things, we actually want them to where they're sitting about there, just barely poking out. Then we're going to glue them on, which we can actually do right now. So I'm going to take some of that medium gap filling CA. I'm going to figure out how you can see this while I do it. And I'm just going to run that right around there. Whoops, didn't want to do that though. I just got it in the rod. That's a no-no. So we're going to pop the rod out before it gets dry and get that CA out of there, because otherwise it's going to glue it right onto it. That was almost a uh-oh. Ugh. All right, we're going to pull that rod out because I got CA on it, and I do not want that to stick in there. So this is going to be super hard to show you guys, but you can actually see right there on the firewall where those are poking out. I don't want these things to be moving in and out and in and out and in and out. So what I'm going to do is hit those all with a little bit of medium CA right now so they'll quit moving in and out on me. Try to do it from the back section, but ended up not working. Now I will say, make sure you have the canopy off and everything when you do any kind of CA gluing in here. Otherwise when it goes off, it'll turn your windows white. Oh, there we go. Now they're nice and stuck. That's what we wanted. And that gets our little rods, like I said, just glued in there where they're not moving back and forth. And then they look real pretty back here. That's just a nice slippery stuff for that to slide in and out on. All right. Now, it is time for us to start getting ready to actually install our servos. So these little black tubes are way too long right now. So what I'm going to do is remove the rods now that we've test fit them, and then we're going to cut these off in here. So I will show you me doing that now. But first, like I said, we're going to take our rods back out that went out to our control surfaces. Now, we need to reach in there and cut these guys off. What I'm going to use is my Dremel tool, and I'm going to try and stick my arm down in there. And if you're a modeler and you don't have a Dremel tool, if you're going to be doing any kind of wood airplanes, go get one. You're going to need this tool. If you're doing wood, you have to have one of these. So I'm going to take that Dremel and I'm going to cut that off now. There we go. Now you can either keep these or throw them away, but there you go. And now, you can see that's nice and clean up in there. And those little rods are just to keep that wire from bending as it goes through all the different formers in the aircraft. It guides it back there, and then it also strengthens it up so that that doesn't have any flex in it. So anyway, there we go. All right, pilots, so this is a good stopping point for day 2 if you're following along with the assembly. I'm trying to break this up into, if you were doing this each and every evening, this should be all the steps you should do each evening. You know, if you're real gung-ho, you could probably finish this whole thing in a night. But I'm trying to break this up into about a 2 to 3 hour stint each night of how long this should take you to do. Of course, with the magic editing, this is a little quicker than that, but like I said, if you're following along with the assembly, now we have our rudder and our elevators installed. We have our push rods installed, mounted up into the front and cut off and trimmed. And the next step, we're going to be putting in our servos. Now, for guys that are getting ready to do that next step, it is a standard size servo hole. Anyway, if you're coming back for that, that's going to be our next step, is getting our 3 servos installed in the fuselage. And then we're probably going to be putting the landing gear on and starting on the motor. So anyway, I hope you're really enjoying this series. If you are, leave us a comment. Say, Wes, do this some more. We really like it. You know, balsa airplanes are something I've wanted to do assembly videos on for a while, but just hasn't figured out the correct format for it. But I'm hoping you're enjoying this. And like I said, if you're new to Motion RC, hit that subscribe button. Let us know you're here. And whether it's land, sea, or air, we're going to see you in that next episode on our Tri-Pacer assembly, guys. See you in the next one. Bye.